Tonight, America's ports are facing an unprecedented crisis, a bottleneck that's choking the flow of goods and impacting every corner of our nation. The scale of this disruption is immense, and the consequences are far-reaching. We're witnessing a massive traffic jam of container ships, a maritime logjam of epic proportions. These vessels are not just carrying cargo, they're carrying the hopes and expectations of businesses and consumers alike. The congestion stretches from the bustling port of Los Angeles, a critical gateway for goods entering the country, all the way to the busy harbors of New York, impacting both coasts and the heartland in between. This isn't a regional issue, it's a nationwide challenge. These ships, some longer than the Empire State Building is tall, are truly colossal. They represent a staggering amount of goods waiting to be unloaded and distributed, but instead, they are anchored offshore, sometimes for weeks on end, unable to unload their precious cargo. This delay creates a ripple effect throughout the entire supply chain. They're packed with everything from the latest electronics to children's toys, eagerly anticipated by families across the country. These are goods meant for store shelves, ready to be purchased, and doorsteps, bringing convenience and joy to our lives. But the delay is disrupting this vital process. This isn't just a shipping problem affecting logistics companies, it's a direct threat to our economy, impacting businesses large and small, and affecting the daily lives of each and every one of us. Nearly half of all U.S. goods, the products we rely on every day, enter through these overwhelmed ports, now struggling to keep up with demand. The machinery of global trade is straining under immense pressure, and the lights of waiting ships, once a symbol of commerce, have become a troubling sign of a system at a standstill, a warning of potential economic hardship. The impact is widespread and deeply felt. Empty store shelves, leaving consumers frustrated and businesses struggling to meet demand. Delayed orders, causing uncertainty and disrupting carefully laid plans. And rising prices, squeezing household budgets and fueling concerns about inflation. The smooth flow of goods once taken for granted has been replaced by costly gridlock, and the pressure is mounting on businesses, consumers, and policymakers alike to find solutions. We're witnessing a critical failure in the backbone of our consumer economy, a breakdown that threatens to disrupt our way of life. The ports are the heart of our economic engine, and right now that heart is suffering from a severe blockage, hindering its ability to pump vital goods throughout the nation. This is more than just a headline-grabbing story, it's a national emergency, affecting what we buy, how much we pay for it, the increasing delays we experience, and the overall health of our economy. The stakes are high and the need for action is urgent. How did we get here? What combination of factors led to this unprecedented bottleneck in the global supply chain? It's a question on everyone's mind, from consumers facing empty shelves to businesses struggling to get their products to market. It's a perfect storm of problems pushing our supply chain to the brink. A confluence of events, each exacerbating the others, has created a situation where the system is struggling to keep up with demand. The pandemic shut down factories worldwide, disrupting production and creating a backlog of orders that would take months to clear. This initial shockwave reverberated throughout the entire system. Then it triggered a surge in demand for imported goods, fueled by government stimulus and changing consumer habits. This happened as Americans shifted spending from services like travel and entertainment to products, filling their homes with new furniture, electronics, and exercise equipment. Ports were overwhelmed by record container volumes, struggling to process the sheer number of ships arriving daily. The infrastructure simply wasn't designed to handle this level of activity. But the crisis goes far beyond the docks. The congestion at the ports is just one symptom of a much larger, more complex problem. A shortage of truck drivers and full warehouses further compound the issue, creating bottlenecks at every stage of the supply chain. This means containers pile up, blocking new shipments from being unloaded and exacerbating the delays. The entire system grinds to a halt. Labor shortages hit every link, from the ports to the warehouses to the trucking companies. There are not enough longshoremen to unload ships, warehouse workers to process goods, or truckers to transport them to their final destinations. Outdated port infrastructure can't handle the surge, with aging equipment and insufficient capacity hindering efficiency. And the system, built for just-in-time efficiency, can't adapt to these unexpected disruptions, leaving businesses scrambling to find alternative solutions. The result is a vicious cycle, a self-perpetuating crisis that seems to have no end in sight. Ships can't unload because ports are full, creating massive queues offshore and further delaying the delivery of goods. Ports are full because trucks and warehouses are maxed out, unable to keep pace with the influx of containers. Every weak link makes the next one worse, amplifying the impact of each individual problem and creating a domino effect throughout the supply chain. This is creating a cascading failure, where the breakdown in one area triggers a chain reaction that brings the entire system closer to collapse. This is why our ports are blocked, with containers piling up and creating logistical nightmares for businesses and consumers alike, and the flow of goods has slowed to a trickle, leaving store shelves empty and consumers frustrated. The entire supply chain is strained to its breaking point, struggling to cope with the unprecedented demands placed upon it. And a single breakdown ripples through the whole system, highlighting the interconnectedness and fragility of the global supply chain. That's the core reason America's ports are under siege, facing a crisis that demands immediate attention and long-term solutions. Retail giants like Amazon and Target are raising red flags about the supply chain crisis. Even with their advanced logistics, they're warning of delays and shortages and higher prices. Amazon has chartered private ships and built its own containers, an extraordinary move that shows how deep the crisis runs. Target faces soaring transportation costs and urges customers to shop early, admitting they can't guarantee products will be on shelves. When these companies warn of trouble, Americans listen. Their messages make the crisis personal, signaling a new reality where convenience is no longer guaranteed. They're worried about lost sales and the need to pass rising costs to consumers. The result? Higher prices and fewer choices for everyone. The supply chain crisis is now a problem for every American household. The port crisis ripples through every part of American life. Small businesses can't absorb shipping delays or costs like big corporations, leaving shelves empty and sales lost. American manufacturers struggle to get parts in and finished goods out, hurting exports and reputations. Farmers watch their crops spoil at the docks, unable to reach global markets. For consumers, the impact is clear empty aisles, sold-out products, and endless delays. Many goods are stuck in containers, trapped in logistical limbo. Every delay adds cost, fuel, storage, trucking, and those costs show up in higher prices. Supply chain inflation is driving up the cost of living, from groceries to electronics. The crisis erodes the purchasing power of every family. The supply chain breakdown is hitting home, one empty shelf and higher price tag at a time. The numbers paint a stark picture, revealing the true scale and depth of the crisis. We're not just talking about minor inconveniences, we're looking at a systemic breakdown impacting every facet of the economy. These aren't abstract figures, they represent real-world bottlenecks and escalating costs. At its peak, the situation reached a critical point with over 100 ships waiting day after day to dock at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. This unprecedented maritime traffic jam became a symbol of the global supply chain's fragility. These are no ordinary ports. Los Angeles and Long Beach together handle a staggering 40% of all U.S. imports. This concentration of activity makes them a critical choke point in the nation's trade network. Any disruption here has ripple effects across the entire country. The consequences are clear. Wait times for a berth, the designated spot for a ship to unload, have jumped dramatically, from mere hours to what feels like an eternity, weeks on end. This delay throws off schedules and exacerbates the congestion. The sheer volume of goods caught in this logjam is astounding, with over 1 million containers filled with everything from electronics to clothing, stuck at sea, unable to reach their destinations. The financial impact is equally staggering. Shipping a single container from Asia to the U.S. West Coast, once a relatively affordable $2,000, has soared to an exorbitant $20,000 or even higher. And these increased costs don't just vanish into thin air, they are inevitably passed down the line, first to retailers who stock the shelves and then, ultimately to consumers like you and me. Adding to the chaos, container dwell times, the amount of time containers sit at the port, have doubled, further clogging up the system. And a persistent truck driver shortage makes clearing the backlog an almost impossible task. The situation is compounded by the fact that the U.S. is currently short an estimated 80,000 truck drivers, a critical workforce needed to move goods across the country, further worsening the already significant delays. The Federal Reserve has identified supply chain disruptions as a major driver of the current inflationary pressures gripping the economy, acknowledging the direct link between port congestion and rising prices. Therefore, each and every spike in shipping costs translates directly into higher prices on store shelves, impacting everything from groceries to household goods. The port crisis, with its complex web of challenges, is no longer just an economic issue. It's now a kitchen table issue, a source of stress and anxiety for millions of families across the nation. In essence, America's supply chain gridlock is a significant factor fueling the widespread inflation that everyone is feeling, impacting household budgets and creating economic uncertainty. With stakes this high, the race is on to unclog America's ports. The White House has pushed for 24/7 port operations, but without enough truckers or warehouse workers, containers still pile up. Ports are levying new fees to speed up container movement, but these are stopgap measures. Companies like Amazon and Walmart are chartering ships and rerouting cargo, but this just shifts the bottleneck. Technology and data analytics are being deployed to predict delays and manage inventory. There's a push to build more warehouses and recruit drivers, but these are long-term fixes. The US is investing billions to modernize ports, upgrade cranes, and improve connections. These investments are critical for the future, but relief for today's crisis is limited. The supply chain needs both urgent action and long-term transformation. As of July 2025, America's supply chain remains fragile and uncertain. Some backlogs have eased, but the system is still vulnerable to new shocks. The big question: will things improve, or could another disruption send us back into chaos? Labor shortages, outdated infrastructure, and reliance on a few big ports remain unsolved. Prolonged high inflation and business closures could become the new normal if the crisis drags on. The everything shortage may force us to rethink convenience and availability. The crisis has sparked calls to bring manufacturing back to the US or closer to home. Reshoring could create jobs and resilience, but it's a long, expensive process. This is a wake-up call. Our supply chain is not invincible. The path forward demands urgent action and strategic investment from both public and private sectors. America's prosperity depends on breaking the gridlock and restoring the flow of goods.